5.
We hoped, didn't we, Liam, that woke was in retreat this year. But, coming up with a late entry for ludicrousness. Yes, the Brighton and Hove Museum.
4.
When I'm in the UK, we've always gone to my granny and grandpa's for, a big Christmas lunch, see the whole family.
3.
Robert Jenrick has almost single-handedly redefined what a Conservative minister can do.
2.
I'll need to frame it because I can't spend it because no one takes cash anymore.
1. We have liftoff.
Welcome once again to Planet Normal, the Telegraph podcast with Alison Pearson.
Hello.
There she is. A subdued hello. And me, Liam Halligan. Happy Christmas to Planet Normal citizens and, of course, to you, dear co-pilot Pearson. This is our last voyage on the rocket of right thinking of 2025 as we huddle up in our flying refuge of reasoned views to spend a while at least away from the madness of planet Earth on our beloved Planet Normal. It's been quite a year, and over the next hour of news and views from beyond the bubble, we'll be looking back at the thrills and spills of 2025 and assess what's over the horizon in the new year. We'll be naming some award winners, those in public life who've impressed and not impressed, those deemed worthy of Planet Normal citizenship and those not. We'll be discussing good news, some tough news, of course. These are tough times. But as ever here on Planet Normal, the podcast that keeps you sane, we'll be having a laugh and a joke along the way. Before we start, Alison, I just wanted to say what a pleasure and privilege it's been for me to co-pilot the rocket with you this year, as we've sometimes grappled over the steering wheel, often nodding along sagely when the other of us is speaking and not really meaning it, and sometimes openly disagreeing, of course, but always respecting each other and helping to shine a light on our respective Telegraph columns. You write in the Telegraph each Wednesday, of course, and I pen my economic agenda in the Sunday Telegraph each week. Link in the show notes as ever to our written Telegraph oeuvre. Good word. Now, you've still got the lurgy, as you had when we recorded last week. There's a nasty dose going about. But you're soldiering on with us recording this special Christmas Day edition of Planet Normal. Hooray! Because let's face it, what with dinner preparation, mad relatives you have to put up with and rouse over the telly, on Christmas Day, everyone does really need to keep calm and listen to Planet Normal. So here we go, Alison, our last episode for 2025, our 283rd trip to Planet Normal since we first left the launch pad back in May 2020. And before we come to our respective moments of the year and our Planet Normal 2025 awards, let's consider news from the Museum of Brighton and Hove, as reported in the Telegraph, link in the show notes, that Santa Claus, get ready, needs to be decolonised. Not so much ho 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 as no no no. From the geniuses running that iconic South Coast institution, it turns out that Brighton and Hove Museum want a non-white Santa and a Mother Christmas too. Put Santa to work in the factory alongside the elves so they're equal, says Brighton and Hove Museum. And when it comes to Santa playfully asking if kids have been good this year before they get their presents, even that's apparently too much. Have Santa learn about different cultures rather than rewarding children on a Western binary of naughty or nice, say one of our iconic cultural institutions. Alison Pearson, please tell me, what planet are these people on? Because they're not on Planet Normal.
They ain't on Planet Normal, are they? No. Well, we hoped, didn't we, Liam, that woke was in retreat this year. But, coming up with a late entry for ludicrousness. Yes, the Brighton and Hove Museum. I particularly enjoyed this idea of disapprovingly that Santa was the ultimate authority of all societies. Dearie me. No more colonial assumptions of cultural superiority from the man with the white, fluffy cotton wool beard. The museum has urged parents to recast Father Christmas as a more diverse character who celebrates cultural exchange. And that's exactly, as we know, anybody listening who's been a parent at 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve, when you've knocked back 3 sherries, you've started on the Baileys and you're wrapping the stocking fillers.
Kids are loitering in the hallway.
I think the worst one we ever had was, tiptoeing in at 2 a.m. Small person wakes up, puts on lights, exclaims excitedly, he's been. And then, oh, has he? Oh, God, absolutely horrendous. Anyway, all I can say is you may be slightly dreading Christmas lunch with the family, but at least you're not having vegan turkey cutlets with the fun sponges at the Brighton and Hove Museum. By the way, Halligan, I have got you that promised 50 quid note, and I've made a few calculations because
I'm going to have to declare it to the revenue now. Why'd you say it on Planet?
It's a cash box,
Okay.
the Christmas box. And so when we subtract the relevant contributions, bear in mind Rachel's frozen tax threshold, your vital contributions to housing tens of thousands of illegal migrants in 4-star hotels. Only 64,000 of them have come across the channel since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And then adjust for inflation, and it's a princely £23.27 to spend, Halligan.
In what world is Alison Pearson telling me how she's adjusted a figure for inflation? Do you even know what you're talking about?
I don't even know what it means. I thought it sounded quite good, though, doesn't it?
It does sound quite good.
Anyway, it's a very nice crisp note, and it's got the great Alan Turing on it. So it's not, or you can frame it actually, because it's pretty much.
I'll need to frame it because I can't spend it because no one takes cash anymore, which I think is one of the less welcome trends of recent years, that no one takes cash. Absolute madness. So look, we're definitely firmly off Brighton and Hove Museum's Christmas card list. Thank God for that, if we're allowed to say that.
You don't think the purple-haired lefties of Brighton and Hove Museum are going to be sending anything as colonialist as a Christmas card, do you?
God, I can't stand it.
You do realise Christianity is a patriarchal construct, Liam. I mean,
it's absolutely outrage. How dare Britain have a national religion? How absolutely outrageous, he says, as a Roman Catholic. But anyway, Alison, let's get on. There's lots to get through in this wonderful, fun-packed Christmas Day edition of Planet Normal. Hooray! Alison, your moment of the year.
There's lots to choose from. In the end, I alighted on Rachel Reeves crying in the House of Commons during Prime Minister's questions, not only because it was an extraordinary moment of drama and pathos, in an auditorium where, we normally just see fake emotion. And this was unfakeable, really. She really was crying. I mean, she had proper snotty, I don't know if anyone listeners remember Juliet Stevenson crying in the film Truly Madly Deep.
Yeah.
I mean, Rachel really was, it was proper crying. And the reason I picked it, Liam, was it felt bigger than itself, really. It was in July of this year. It felt like a moment of truth, really. It crystallised so much that's gone wrong with the Labour government, which came in, obviously, with a stonking majority, a loveless landslide, but nevertheless, hundreds of seats. And I think Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, was crying because she knew at that moment that Labour backbenchers, particularly the left, were not going to let her balance the books. So much for this agenda for growth. She was going to have to break her promise and come back for more tax rises. So it was all unravelling at speed. And listeners will remember, Liam, that Starmer started the year in quite a reasonable position. He got on pretty well with President Trump. The trade deal was made and so on. And then since then, it's been an utter clown show. I think the most moronic government, it's certainly in living memory for me, utterly out of its depth. We've had a sequence of humiliating U-turns. Again, the Prime Minister having to bend to the party's left, which is astonishing when you think of the size of that parliamentary majority. So we've had these sequence of humiliating U-turns, winter fuel payments, cuts to disability payments. You'll remember, Liam, that the welfare programme wasn't just axed, it was completely reversed. Billions of pounds of new spending to lift the 2-child benefit cap, to reverse the winter fuel payments. The pledge not to raise taxes on working families was completely abandoned. And you can forget making a success of Brexit, which is what Starmer started out saying. Now we are sliding back into the EU orbit on the most, extortionate terms possible. Because I think Starmer has realised he's never winning the red wall back. So now it's about cozying up to Lib Dem defecting voters. And I think that the other thing to make the point really is that as the government's failure has got worse and worse, what we've seen is increasingly authoritarian behaviour to crack down on dissent. You know, the restrictions of trial by jury, plans to introduce digital ID, more hate crimes, and so on. What do you think of my moment of the year, and what's yours, Liam?
I think it's a great moment of the year, and it's one I could have chosen myself, given that it is basically her frustration was about politics, but also it's about her failure to implement the economic policy that she wants, because she's hemmed in by the economically illiterate massed ranks of backbench Labour MPs. And my moment of the year is related, if rather more obscure and less noticed, a bit like myself. It's when Eddie Dempsey, who is a very articulate, very influential boss of the RMT Rail Union, you know, the late Bob Crow really used the RMT Rail Union as a sort of parapet for bashing anything remotely resembling capitalism. And Eddie Dempsey is his successor. And at the Durham Miners Gala in July, he gave an extremely powerful speech. It's still on YouTube. They go on the news, the commentators and the pundits, and they say, "How will the markets react?" said Eddie Dempsey. "What about the markets?" "Well, who elected the markets? Not me. Who runs this country? Us or the markets?" Your massed ranked of miners and all those wonderful, beautifully woven miners' tapestries that they carry on sticks when they march, often with dignity, but in this case with absolute economic nonsense ringing in their ears. Because this was a moment, I think, that followed on from, or preempted, I should say, Andy Burnham ahead of the Labour conference in the autumn. This is the beginning of the left publicly saying to Downing Street, basically, default on our debt, right? Forget about paying back our international creditors. Forget about managing the economy in a remotely conventional and respectable and necessary way. Eddie Dempsey's a clever bloke. I know for a fact that Andy Burnham is a clever bloke because I've known the guy for the best part of 30 years and played in football teams with him and all the rest of it in my journey as a political and economic journalist. And for men of this influence and caliber, they are seriously smart people to get where they've got in their respective organisations. Andy Burnham, of course, Manchester Mayor, Eddie Dempsey bestriding an extremely powerful trade union. For them to flirt, even to flirt with the idea of the British government, the sixth biggest economy in the world, telling our creditors to naff off is insane. It's absolutely insane. And it's the ultimate victory of blind, self-serving ideology over what's actually best for the country. Can you imagine if the British government got at all iffy about whether or not we're going to pay what we call the coupons, the debt service costs, on the now tens of billions of pounds of extra borrowing that this government is taking on each month. Our debt service bill, of course, and it really came to the fore this year after the likes of me and a few others going on and on about this for years, even under the Tories. It's got a lot worse under Labour. Our debt service bill now, more than the state spends on education every year, twice what we spend on defence. To be clear, if you've had a bit too much Christmas brandy and that didn't sink in, I'm not talking about the size of the national debt being more than we spend on state education each year, twice what we spend on defence. I'm talking about the bill each year to service the debt, to stay in one place. It's absolutely morally outrageous. There is nothing progressive at all in racking up more and more and more borrowing, which we must service. We must pay those interest payments every quarter to financial markets, to investors around the world. That's taxpayers' money that we can't spend on nurses and schools and all the rest of the things that the country wants us to spend our taxpayers' money on. Eddie Dempsey, you have given me the moment of the year because you've reminded me just how moronic, I'm afraid, your quarter of politics can be.
I want to say that I'm sure some listeners will sympathise with me because I look back with fondness on my previous kind of pre-lapsarian state before you bloody well told me about these bond markets. I just think, I rarely think of anything else. Between the novels of Jane Austen and the gilt markets, that's all that's crowding into co-pilot Pearson's head. I think before we move on to the actual awards, I think we should just say two things. One, which is that by contrast to Starmer's relatively good start and then absolutely increasing failure, we saw Kemi Badenoch, Tory leader, making a bit of a faltering start and then growing in confidence and joie de vivre through the year. So she's been doing very well. And I think by exactly countering what you're describing, Liam, by really putting the emphasis on economic responsibility, I think that's right. But again, before we move on, I would just say that this was, above all, the year of Reform UK and Nigel Farage. And I think, again, another moment we could have picked in May, the former Tory councillor Sarah Pochin won the Runcorn and Helmsby by-election by a nail-biting 6 votes, overturning a Labour majority of 14,696. Now, that's absolutely astonishing. And in the local elections that took place at the same time, that was back in the days, Liam, when the Labour government still allowed the British people to have elections. But in May, Reform won the largest number of seats, 677, and that was 41% of all seats up for grabs. And they took seats in traditional Labour and Tory heartlands. An absolutely astonishing rise for a relatively new party, don't you think?
It was. And I'm sure we'll come on to that. Let's rattle through these awards, Alison. Shooting Star Award, the person we like.
Yes, so in a sea of mediocrity, there were a few politicians who shone out this year. A nod to our favourite Baroness Claire Fox, who's been superb in the Lords. Tory MPs Katie Lamanick, Timothy, been holding Labour's feet to the fire on the dire consequences of uncontrolled immigration. But my shooting star co-pilot of 2025 is Layla Cunningham, former senior Crown prosecutor. Layla is currently leading Reform UK's law and order campaign. She's on Westminster Council, Liam, but you heard it here first. Layla is a hot tip to be Reform's candidate for London Mayor. She is blessed with both guts and charisma, mercilessly takes down her political opponents. And coming from Egyptian and Muslim origins, she is extremely well placed to call out some of the scourges of our age: militant Islam, the failure of multiculturalism, and the shocking violence committed at an increasing rate by illegal migrants against British women and girls. And I've got no doubt, Liam, that Layla Cunningham will become a major national figure and a key player in any future Reform government.
And she's a mum of 7 alongside all her other achievements. My Shooting Star Award is rather further away from Westminster than yours. It's in Argentina. It's Javier Milei, who is the president of Argentina. I wrote a column about Javier Milei a few weeks ago in The Telegraph. I've got big plans to return to Argentina in 2026 to do a bit of reporting from there under my own steam. I was first in Argentina in 2002. I made a documentary there about the economic basket case that it was. This is a country that, of course, has won the Football World Cup annoyingly 3 times, but they've defaulted on their sovereign debt 9 times, and they've had 23 IMF bailouts. Yet under Javier Milei, who's now been in post for 2 years, he has cut the deficit. He's got Argentina into fiscal surplus for the first time in 100 years. He's got inflation down from well over 200% to under 30%. Argentina is a country of just ridiculous potential. The natural resources, the fantastic, smart mix of people that they have, beautifully positioned there in the southern hemisphere to really make economic hay. And I sincerely hope that they do. And Javier Milei, as I reported recently, he actually, did very well in the equivalent of Argentina's midterm elections. And I think he is, incredibly, a country that was a basket case is now a template for reform across the Western world. And now the Ground Control Award, Best Clear Messaging or Communicator. And before we go on, we should just mention, shouldn't we, Alison, that these awards have been conceived by our brilliant producer who does so much in the engine room of the Planet Normal rocket. So your best clear messenger and communicator
is Toby Young, Lord Young of Acton, founder and general secretary of the Free Speech Union. And I honestly, Liam, this year, it's genuinely frightening now, this authoritarian government. And Toby and the Free Speech Union are, I think, performing the vital function of protecting the British people from the police and the state. And there have been some notable victories for the FSU this year. Listeners will remember ex-Royal Marine Jamie Michael arrested over a social media post and supported by the FSU. Jamie was acquitted by a jury in 17 minutes. That's back when Labour used to allow jury trials. FSU also paid for the defence of Hamid Koshkin, who was acquitted for burning a copy of the Quran. So Toby's been campaigning against a blasphemy law, against non-crime hate incidents, has forced Bridget Phillipson to do a U-turn over her plans to scrap the Tories' Freedom of Speech Act. So this great organisation founded by Toby Young with immense foresight, really, has fought over 2,000 cases this year, including for one non-crime hate criminal, your own co-pilot Pearson.
Yeah, I must say, I think Toby Young has done a great job. The Free Speech Union, a little more than 5 years old now, but has become massively influential, playing a really important role. My best clear messaging and communicator is somebody who's not a household name, but a fellow economist. He's a Cambridge professor, Jajit Chadha. Jajit Chadha is one of our most esteemed fiscal and monetary economists. He's also extremely courageous, Alison. Back in August, Jajit Chadha gave me an interview, which the Telegraph reported on the front page. It was on my When the Facts Change Substack, in which he, as a very, very experienced and respected economist, he ran the National Institute for Economic and Social Research, our premier macroeconomic think tank for the best part of a decade. He joined me in warning that the UK's fiscal path is currently unsustainable. And in the end, unless we change course, we're going to end up with, having to bail out the British economy from a sort of external source. That's an absolute heretical thing to say when I was saying it in the earlier part of this year. But when the likes of Jajit Chadha weigh in, significant career risk to himself, why shouldn't he be on the Monetary Policy Committee? Why shouldn't he be the governor of the Bank of England? But, the Treasury and the high-ups, they don't like people who speak out. Jajit Chadha spoke out. And for that, I salute him and award him Planet Normal's Ground Control Award. We've got the Armstrong Award, someone who's the first to say or do something against the crane. Neil Armstrong, of course, the first ever person to step foot on the moon. Alison, your Armstrong Award.
My winner is Robert Jenrick. The Shadow Justice Secretary has pioneered this year kind of guerrilla political direct action. He went to Stratford Station in East London, where he confronted fare dodgers at some risk to his own person. The video of that went on to be viewed 10 million times, and it was followed by a 74% increase in prosecutions on the Underground network after Mayor Sadiq Khan was shamed into finally pulling his finger out. And I do think that Robert Jenrick has almost single-handedly redefined what a Conservative minister can do and made it very, very relatable, and speaking now to a mass of the country who are mightily angry and fed up with politics as normal.
I think that's a great nomination. Shout out to a young filmmaker called Alex Webster, who happens to be a friend of mine, who is the person who's been masterminding Robert Jenrick's films and social media. And I think Alex also is a huge talent. And I don't think Robert Jenrick would mind me saying, I'm going to say it anyway, that without Alex Webster, his impact on social media would not have been nearly as significant as it has been. And my Armstrong Award co-pilot, drum roll, is to you. Alison Pearson,
God.
Planet Normal co-pilot. You keep telling me I disagree with you about what reform going to do well in Wales, right? So can we just put now on the record with an award, yeah? You said it first before me, okay? But then I agreed immediately, okay? So there's no tension here. There's no, So have your bloody Armstrong Award, okay? And shut up about it. Right.
What am I getting it for predicting the Senate
For predicting that Reform are going to do really well in Wales, okay? Which, of course, they are, because you're from Wales. You know, right? I mean, far be it from me to comment on Wales. But anyway, you were absolutely slam dunk ahead of anyone I know, certainly, in saying that you reckon Reform could take Wales. You said that over a year ago. So let that be on the record as we quaff our Baileys and nibble on our mince pies. And that's me on the naughty step. So here we go. We're on the naughty list now. The Black Hole Award for where all reason is swallowed and crushed. Alison.
Yeah, well, I would ideally have liked to give the Black Hole Award to David Lammy, for trying to limit the ancient right to trial by jury. But Lammy would only shout that giving him a Black Hole Award was racist, unfortunately. So instead, it's going to the BBC, whose reporting of Israel and Gaza violated basic journalistic ethics, as was pointed out in a report by Michael Prescott, which became one of the Telegraph's great scoops of the year. The Telegraph's had some amazing scoops this year. The BBC preferred to take the word of Hamas members and sympathisers over that of a democratically elected government, an ally of Britain. Liam, I've got no doubt that intensely biased BBC coverage has stoked anti-Semitic feeling in the UK, leading to attacks on synagogues and to thousands of Jews potentially fleeing our country, which is one of the great tragedies of the past year. And President Trump, of course, is suing the BBC for $5 billion after it disgracefully doctored one of his speeches. So 2025, very black hole year for our national broadcaster.
And you mentioned Michael Prescott there, the man at the centre of that BBC controversy who did the independent report. Just briefly, I know Michael Prescott. I used to be what's called a lobby correspondent with Michael Prescott when he was on the Sunday Times. He is no Tory stooge, right? Michael Prescott is not a Conservative stooge by any means. He was a damn good political editor for the Sunday Times and a very, very sharp story getter. And I think the BBC are lucky to have someone of his journalistic nous anywhere near their governance. So chapeau to Michael Prescott. And just briefly, my Black Hole Award for Where All Reason is Swallowed and Crushed is to Zach Polanski, the boob whisperer himself, the Green Party leader, because Zach Polanski keeps going on and on and on about deficit controls. Zach, do some research before you start talking about the economy. You don't even know the difference between a debt and a deficit. Absolutely pathetic. Rent controls, everywhere they've been tried, at all times, they have led to less property available. And the difficulty is we have so few properties available to rent. Rent controls will make that even worse. I know Sadiq Khan agrees with you. That's all the more reason to change your mind. And finally, the Hubble Award, the award for achievements that can only be seen with a high-powered telescope. Thank you, Kaz, for that one. Alison, your Hubble Award.
Well, I think this is a brilliant award for Jess Phillips, the Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls Minister, and indeed, Liam, to everyone on the government benches who fought tooth and nail to deny a national inquiry into the tens of thousands of young female victims of mainly Pakistani rape gangs and the attempt to bury what many believe to be the biggest scandal in British history to avoid upsetting one of Labour's minority voting groups was itself a scandal and another betrayal of incredibly vulnerable, but in many cases, very brave young women. And just a quick nod to Rupert Lowe, MP, who set up his own rape gang inquiry because the official one was being so slow. And to Sammy Woodhouse, a former Planet Normal guest, Sammy, a rape gang survivor herself, who is courageously absolutely refusing to allow this astonishing and shaming issue to be buried.
Yeah, Sammy Woodhouse. Wow, what an incredible person. And I sincerely hope Sammy Woodhouse and her family are having a merry Christmas. Finally, my Hubble Award is to, I'm afraid, it can only go to one person. That is Keir Starmer. I do think he is an absolute dud as Prime Minister. In general, I want the British government to do well. I'm a patriotic person, as I said many times on Planet Normal, and I know it's annoyed some listeners, but I'm going to keep saying it anyway because it's what I believe. I actually think it's good for the UK if we have a Labour government that does a decent job and works okay. We had that for the most part, despite some huge errors under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. They were a viable government. They didn't, or at least for a while, trash the economy. They did some sensible things. And I think that was better for British plurality, that we had, if you like, governments from either side of the aisle in order to give voters a genuine choice. But I'm afraid Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and the rabble that they lead in the House of Commons are really taking us back to the future, if you like. They're taking us back to a situation where the Labour Party crashes the economy, taxes people to the hilt, throws all common sense out of the window, becomes deeply, deeply ideological, and seriously sullies Britain's reputation as a place to do business doing enormous damage to the wealth and prosperity of this country. And I suspect, I hope it doesn't happen, but they're certainly flirting now with provoking a significant financial crisis for this country, a financial crisis in which it will be the poor who suffers most. So well done, Keir Starmer. Good on you, mate, and happy Christmas. So let's look ahead to 2026, Alison, in the last 5 minutes or so of this section before we move on to our Planet Normal guest. We've got the May elections, Scotland, Wales, and the local elections in early May, the extent to which those elections are going to be allowed to take place. What do you think will happen, and what do you think will happen in politics more generally in 2026?
Have I mentioned that I thought that Reform was going to do well in the Welsh elections?
That's an interesting idea. I've never heard that one before. Why didn't you mention it earlier? About 98 times.
So this is going to be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to this, as you can tell, because I've been banging on about it, haven't I? Yeah, so the May elections, disgracefully, the government, which, as I indicated earlier, is trying to sort of make up for its failures by not exposing itself to either the press corps, they want to sort of cancel the media briefings, and also stop democracy, really. So elections, Liam, are very, very important safety valve, aren't they, in a democracy? But I think that they were planning on trying to cancel even more of the local elections in May. And I'm hoping the Conservatives are going to say that they're not going to do that, because it is an absolute disgrace, because it's all about saving Labour's face. But yes, May elections, Wales and Scotland, I think we're going to see a confirmation that the two-party system is finished. In the latest poll for the Senate elections, both Labour and Conservatives are on 10% apiece. 10%, right? We're seeing Plaid Cymru just slightly ahead of Reform, but there's a bit of time to go. And because, here we go, Velma nerdy knowledge. You want to do a
the last one of the year? Maybe. Got one in there.
Yeah. So Wales has moved to the Dehont proportional representation system, which means that even if Plaid Cymru wins,
pass me the brandy, the Dehont multiplied.
God knows what it is. Anyway, I've learned the word, and that's the main thing.
That's the main
thing. The Dehont system, which means that even if, as in Caerphilly recently in the election where Plaid Cymru won, that would mean with this new system that Reform would have picked up 3 seats and Plaid Cymru would have got 3 seats. So it is quite likely that there may well still be a left-wing coalition dominating the Welsh Parliament if Plaid does well and ropes in Labour and the Greens. But I think Reform are set to do phenomenally well. And I think that is going to be a seismic, epoch-shaping blow to Labour, which, of course, has been able to complacently regard Wales as its fiefdom. I think Starmer will have to go. I think almost as soon as they can get their acts together. Be interesting to see where Streeting is in contention. Rayner's, shaking her Titian hair in the background, isn't she? Andy Burnham, if he can get a seat, is hoping to come in. I also think we're going to see more defections from the Conservative Party to Reform. Obviously, the most significant one this year was Danny Kruger, but I'm hearing about some quite major figures who might be going across. And finally, Liam, I think that a lot of younger people, a lot of the younger generation, the so-called lost generation, are now rejecting traditional politics. And there's an interesting sex divide here. I think young women are tending towards the Greens, perhaps because they can have the boob whisperer making their boobs bigger, but just because it's all nice, touchy-feely, let's be nice to poor people, isn't it? Meanwhile, a lot of very angry and disillusioned young men are looking rightwards to Reform. So I think going forward, this will be the end of the two-party system. 2026, the end of this system that's dominated our politics.
I think there's a lot in that, Alison. I'm going to be looking very closely in the new year at the relationship between government announcements, government spending, what's happening on financial markets. It may well be the year when Keir Starmer is decapitated by the Labour left, as you rightly say. But will it be the year, and I think this is a huge question for Planet Normal listeners, will it be the year that Kemi Badenoch survives? There's been so much talk, I think, that after the May elections, when the Tories get a kicking in those, that Kemi Badenoch would be removed in the Tory regicide that the party specialises in. That will then be 7 leaders in 8 years, which I personally think would make the party look completely nuts to the outside world, both across the UK and indeed the world. This is the natural party of governance historically here in the UK, the most successful political party of all time anywhere in the world in terms of years in power. I actually think, Alison, that she deserves more latitude from her party. She's clearly made improvements in the last few weeks and months. She's clearly enjoying the job more. She's clearly got a lot more of her party behind her, and she's clearly performing a lot better in the House of Commons and beyond, and starting finally to make really bold policy moves that are getting attention. So will this be the year that Keir Starmer goes and Kemi Badenoch survives, all in the context of reform getting stronger? Now, Alison and I like watching tennis, and we know many of our beloved Planet Normal listeners do too. So pin back your ears, dear listeners, because you're in for a Christmas treat. The other day, I asked one of the various AI-driven search engines a question. Name British Wimbledon's champions of the last 50 years, I typed. The answer included the fabulous Virginia Wade, of course, who took the ladies' singles title in 1977, the year of the late Queen's Silver Jubilee, and Andy Murray, who also won Wimbledon in 2013, becoming our first men's singles champion since the great Fred Perry took the title 3 times on the trot back in the 1930s. But, Alison, in 2023, what about Britain's Neil Skupsey, who took the Wimbledon's men's doubles title, paired with Wesley Koolhof of the Netherlands? The following year, 2024, Henry Patten retained the title for Britain, the men's doubles at Wimbledon, along with Finland's Harri Heliövaara. And this year, 2025, 2 Brits combined to keep the Wimbledon title for the UK for the 3rd year in a row. Julian Cash and Lloyd Glasspool were Wimbledon men's doubles champions. Oh, and Henry Patten, the 2024 Wimbledon doubles champion, also won, again with Harri Heliövaara, the Australian Open doubles title earlier this year. With the 2026 Australian Open due to start in mid-January and Planet Normal listeners in need of some positive news, we invited Henry Patten onto the rocket of right thinking. Born in 1996, he grew up in Essex and started playing tennis aged 5. He attended the sport-focused Colford School and then earned a scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Asheville in the US, where he really came into his own. Turning pro in 2020, Henry Patten initially partnered with Britain's Julian Cash, winning a record 10 Challenger doubles titles, that's the 2nd tier of tennis, in 2022. And then with Finland's Harri Heliövaara, in 2024, he achieved rapid success, winning not just Wimbledon and the Aussie Open this year, but also the Paris Masters 1000, the China Open, and the Nitto ATP Finals too. I started by asking Henry Patten, part of the pairing currently ranked number 3 in the world, why doubles tennis, which is so much fun to watch, so fast and dramatic, so skillful, why it always plays second fiddle to singles tennis, not least when it comes to media exposure.
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I think there's been quite a lot of talk in recent years about, what can we do with doubles to make it a bit more high profile. And like you said, especially in Great Britain, we have amazing heritage in doubles and currently have an incredible doubles program that's running. I'm currently ranked in the number 2 pair in the world. The number 1 pair in the world right now are both Brits.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Obviously there was, Jamie Murray, who's Grand Slam winner. Joe Salisbury and Neil Skupsky, both Grand Slam winners in recent years.
But Jamie Murray was a household name because he's Andy Murray's brother and Judy Murray's kid, because he was kind of linked to the singles.
Yeah, it helps, doesn't it? Obviously, Andy is a household name and got so much exposure for what he did, rightly so. And Jamie kind of got a bit of exposure from that as well. And just that little tiny extra bit of exposure, I think, really shone a light on what he was doing. And people were quite interested in that. I think the issue is there's not a whole lot of promotion and exposure that we get apart from once a year, obviously at Queen's and Wimbledon, where the whole of Great Britain stops and watches the tennis. But yeah, we're kind of going all year round and getting some pretty good results. So we'll keep trying. We'll keep doing our best and hopefully good things will happen.
So you grew up, Henry, watching Tim Henman, of course, damn good tennis player. I think he got to world number 4 at one stage, never quite won Wimbledon. Andy Murray comes along. I guess when Andy Murray won Wimbledon in 2013, you were sort of 16, 17. You must have been well into tennis by then.
Oh, yeah, I love watching tennis. I never for one second thought that I was going to be a professional tennis player, that's for sure. But I've spent my whole life playing the game. I grew up playing it, started playing it around 5. My parents don't play, but all of my siblings play. So it was a big part of my life. I grew up watching Wimbledon every year, following the tennis and Tim and Andy and all of these amazing players. And yeah, especially when Andy was winning Grand Slams, that was really inspiring to watch. I love the game. I love the sport. When I was a kid, I don't think me or definitely not my parents thought this is going to turn into my career. But I enjoy playing it. And I think that gives me a different perspective to a lot of professional tennis players. I really appreciate the sport and what it's done for me over the years and how my relationship with it has obviously had to change.
So after school in England, Henry, you went to the University of North Carolina to play collegiate tennis, which is obviously a very high standard, very, very competitive. How important was it that you went to America? We know that British tennis is working hard to build up the strength and depth of our players, but it seems that a lot of top players, they do get to the top via a stint in America. Is that fair?
Yeah, so I was in Asheville for 4 years, and when I went there, so I was at Colford School and there was a tennis academy, and all 3 of us went over to the States to play, all 3 in my year. So yeah, it's a fantastic route. Over in the States, university sports and college tennis is huge. I was just talking about it the other day. We've got the college playoffs for football, American football coming up, basketball's on, and I mean, they are seriously packing out huge arenas. It's a big, big business over here. And so they have a lot more money to spend on sport, even if it's tennis, which isn't as big. But, these universities have got loads of money to spend on it. So inevitably, the facilities are probably much better in general. The training programs are great. And the other great thing about the Americans is they love winning. They take it really, really seriously, which completely changed my approach to tennis and definitely changed my standard of tennis. I got a lot better in my 4 years in Asheville. So yeah, it's not surprising to me. I think it's a lot more popular now, even than then. You're seeing kids from all over the world. The junior world number 1 has just signed to a college program. So people are seeing it as a great avenue to get into professional tennis now.
It's a facilities thing, but a tennis court is a tennis court. We got tennis courts in the UK, but is it an attitude thing then? Is it a seriousness thing that made America so important for you?
Yeah, I think it's just a different approach to it. I remember my freshman year, my first year there, woken up at 6 a.m. for weight sessions and going to the track, 5 degrees weather. That was pretty new to me, as a kind of mid-ranked junior working in the UK. That was a bit of a wake-up call. So I definitely learned a bit of discipline and work ethic. And I think being part of a team with people older than you was great as well. They sort of pulled me along, showed me the ropes, the way to compete and play and be a teammate, which also I think I keep a lot of those traits with me now and have carried those over into professional tennis.
Do you think British tennis, it tends to be played more by middle-class people? Maybe they're a bit softer around the edges. I mean, look at the Williams sisters, right? From Compton, LA, a really rough area. John McEnroe from a pretty rough area. Is the tennis in America a bit more go-getting? Do we need more of that here in the UK, do you think? Because, we invented the game and obviously we've had some greats in recent times and you're right up there. But it does seem that it's a really rare thing that we win our own tennis tournament, the most prestigious tournament in the world. Do you think British tennis needs a bit more attitude?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that. I think I probably did get it from America, and I grew up in the UK kind of in a middle-class family. And I think, in the States, it's very much the same. What I'll say about the States is their public facilities, their public tennis courts are absolutely incredible. We're talking about, the same courts that they have at the US Open, the acrylic hard courts are everywhere. I think that makes quite a big difference, actually, just in terms of much more people have access to good tennis courts. Of course, the weather is better as well, so you can play outside and play at all times on these public courts. And I think that probably does make a big difference. It's difficult to say whether, British tennis needs to get tougher, because I think we have had some really tough, good players over the years. You look at, Andy, Tim, and on the double side as well. But I think when you get to the top, which in the UK, being a much smaller country, whether you're a junior or a professional tennis player, is a bit easier. When you get up there, we have the National Tennis Centre in Roehampton, which is a world-class facility. We have nutritionists, we have doctors, we have, the whole shebang. And I'm not sure, guys like Novak Djokovic maybe had that growing up as a junior.
Yeah.
I really doubt that. But at the same time, what are you going to do? You want to have the best facilities and the best support available.
So, Henry, you did win Wimbledon in 2024. You did win the Australian Open in 2025 with your Finnish partner. I've watched those matches on YouTube, and the speed at which you guys play, the lightning reflexes, absolutely crazy rallies with the net play. What's it like, Henry Patten, when you're in the middle of one of those rallies?
This is going to sound very disappointing, but it's sort of business as usual. It's sort of like, sitting at a desk and firing up Riverside Studios and sitting down for a podcast. We do this all day, every day. Now, what I will say is I probably get a bit more of an adrenaline kick when those great rallies are happening and you're competing. And
I get an adrenaline kick watching them. I'm sort of punching the air.
Yeah, so there is that, which I really enjoy. But yeah, I always find it funny, especially commentators who say things like, "Oh, amazing instinct there," or "God, how did he read that point?" Because I kid you not, we do this stuff all day, every day. The quick reflexes. We practice for that stuff, and in doubles, of course, you have to be ready to go. Because if you're not ready and you're at the net and you have whoever it is smacking a return at you're going to get hurt.
Look, you're obviously a totally world-class doubles player. You're ranked in the top 3 in the world. Obviously, with your Finnish partner, you are at the moment the pairing to beat. And yet, with huge respect to you, Henry, in singles, I don't know what your highest ranking in singles is, but it's certainly outside the top 100. What is it that makes you such a brilliant doubles player? You're obviously a superb singles player, but you're not a world-class singles player, with huge respect. Why is it that you're so good? What is it about your game, your personality, your instincts that you have really settled on doubles? Or have you settled on doubles?
I have settled on doubles. Me and Julian Cash, who is now part of the number 1 pairing in the world, we sort of had our breakthrough together, and we did really well really quickly in doubles and decided we're going to go play the bigger events in doubles, and our singles, it's going to take ages to make it in singles. If we do or not, we're going to ride this wave. So that's why we went off and played doubles, and that's why we are where we are, really. I think personally, well, I'm left-handed, so people love playing with left-handers. It upsets the rhythm of the opponents if you got one left-hander serving at you, then one right-hander. We both have our forehand in the middle of the court, so that's kind of like a tactical aspect to it. I like to think maybe you have to ask Harry on this. I like to think I'm quite a good partner. I'm quite,
Harry, of course, is your partner. Could you please pronounce his Finnish surname, because I don't want to embarrass myself by trying?
Yeah, it's Harry Heliovara. This is how it's said. And yeah, so I like to think I'm quite a good partner. I've been in teams before, but I'm quite laid back, quite easygoing, and I'm quite tall as well. So I'm about 6'6", so I can cover quite a lot of the court with my wingspan. I think if you ask anyone, I'm not the fastest around the court, which a lot of the singles guys are. Maybe not the quickest, but I can cover a lot of the angles with my long arms.
So you're Peter Fleming to his John McEnroe. There, I'm showing my age.
Something like that. He's definitely a little bit more fiery than I am, and I think it's a good combination that works.
And so it is the Australian Open. It is Christmas now, though. The Aussie Open is in January. What do you do on Christmas Day? What does a world-class athlete do on Christmas Day, Henry Patten?
I have Christmas Day exactly as I would do if I wasn't a tennis player. So when I'm in the UK, I'm in the US this year. My fiance is from the US, so we're doing it her family's. When I'm in the UK, we've always gone to my granny and grandpa's for, big Christmas lunch, see the whole family in London, drive back. It's very much business as usual, and I really hold on to those sort of nostalgic family moments, because obviously with all the travel, I don't get to do those things quite as much as I'd like to. So, and I think really that's the same for every tennis player. Certainly in the UK, the NTC shuts down for a few days and everyone says, let's stop messing around. We need to take care of ourselves a bit and have a nice day. It's a nice time of year to be at home and around family and friends as well. And important to take a day off and just relax for a second.
So you did propose to Ellie Stone last month, I believe. So congratulations on that. And she's no slouch either. She's a pretty good soccer player by all accounts.
Thank you. Yeah,
I can say soccer because that's what I suspect she calls it, because she's American, of course.
No, she's been well trained to call it football now. Too many years of abuse in my family have led her to that. We met at university and she was on the soccer football team there. So yeah, great. And now she talk about no slouch. She gives me perspective as to what I'm doing. She's a second year sort of resident junior doctor in the hospital, so she's got a pretty rough time of it at the moment. Makes me feel very lucky that I'm off mucking about on the tennis court. But very happy. We've been together for ages. I finally plucked up the courage to marry her, and we'll have to try and find a date in the busy tennis schedule to get it done.
And I understand, as well as being a superb tennis player, you've also got plenty up top, Henry Patten. You've been working as a statistician for IBM. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was great. Well, when I won Wimbledon, that was such a big headline.
Sorry. As a fellow Brit, can you just say that to me again? When I won Wimbledon.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. Sorry. I just want to make it clear, I do not take that for granted.
When I won Wimbledon.
After the best day of my life.
No, so far.
Yeah, so far.
Because you're going to marry Ellie.
Yeah, so far. Yeah, thank you.
I saved you there.
Thanks for saving me. Yeah, that was a great headline. So when I was at university, I would come back to the UK for my summer holiday. And I would work at Wimbledon. So if you look at every court, and it's easier to see on the outdoor courts, there is someone in an IBM shirt and probably a hat, looking probably quite bored, but they're a computer and their job is to type in data points. So where the serve goes, where the return goes, how the point finishes, that kind of stuff. And so I wasn't a full-time statistician for IBM, but I did work for them at Wimbledon for a couple of years, which was a great experience. I mean, it was fantastic for me at the time. It was paid pretty well, actually. It's very funny having been on both sides of, being a player there is quite a different experience to working there as a stats guy. I really appreciate them. And this year I actually went and spoke to them all. They have a morning debrief every morning. Who's going to be on each court? So I went and spoke to them and had a chat and sort of walked down memory lane for a second, which was really nice.
Finally, Henry, the Australian Open does begin, I believe, on the 12th of January. It's just around the corner. You are the defending champion with Harry, of course. How are you going to do?
Great question. It's a fantastic question. Well, I hope we're going to do pretty well. We had a fantastic time there last year, obviously. I think we both like being in Australia at that time of the year. The weather's amazing. The food is great. The cities are great that we get to play in. So I think we'll both be in a good enough mood to do well. And we'll see. We obviously finished the season off really strongly, had a couple of weeks off after that. And we're back to training now, training hard, trying to get ready for it. I'm not sure how we're going to do. I think we have every chance of doing really well again, but we'll just have to go and do our best and try and enjoy it. That's the most important thing.
Well, Henry, look, happy Christmas to you and your family from myself, Alison, and Planet Normal listeners. I think we all would love to see, no pressure, a Brit go and do well in Australia, given what's happening with the Ashes. It's been great to talk to you. And let's just say, as a sports fan, as somebody who's watched tennis over the years with great admiration, I really think doubles should get a lot more of a look in than it does. And I think you and Julian Cash and the other British doubles players that are really now bestriding the world, I think your generation could do a lot to bring that about.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So there you go, Alison. Henry Patton, what a guy. Fantastic flag bearer for Britain. All the best to him and other British contestants, singles and doubles in the Aussie Open, which is Monday the 12th of January to Sunday the 1st of February. Do look out for them, because I think doubles needs a lot more attention and deserves a lot more focus.
I feel quite embarrassed, Liam. What a lovely guy. And I hadn't I haven't heard of him, and yet I absolutely love doubles. And my mum was tennis mad, so I grew up watching, Vijay, the Armitage brothers, and the wonderful Indian duo at Wimbledon, and John Newcombe and Roach, of course.
Peter McNamara, Paul McNamee.
Yes, absolutely. Jimmy Connors, Ealing Nastasi. I mean, these great characters, and doubles can often be more entertaining. Obviously, the singles are these great gladiatorial contests. I think it's a shame they moved the timing of the men's finals, which always used to come on after the men's singles and was a lovely little kind of afternote that people really paid attention to, but they moved it around. But we wish Henry well. I'll really be keeping an eye out for him now.
Now on to our listener emails in this Christmas special. The messages you send at planetnormal@telegraph.co.uk, please keep them coming. We learn so much from you, the citizens of Planet Normal. And because it's Christmas, we are going to do 2 poems that have landed in the Planet Normal inbox. There go the sleigh bells, loading up the presents. And the elves have been in the workshop. Whatever you say, Brighton and Hove Museum, we want our elves in the workshop where they belong. And we want Santa delivering presents to those kids. So this, brace yourself, Alison, is from Bob the Bard. He's struck again for Christmas. I'm not sure if this is your final episode before Christmas, says Bob. It is. But in case it is, here's something for you to sing as you dance around your Tesco evergreen tree. Thanks again for Planet Normal. And I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Regards from Bob, in inverted commas, former mug winner. Rocking around the evergreen at the end of 25. The pilots are here with some wine and beer. So let's join them for a jive.
Rocking around the evergreen with our winter jumpers on. The year's been tough, we've all had enough, so let's party till it's gone.
You may hear the sound of someone knocking on the door. Is it people carol singing or the cops to check our thinking?
Yay! Rocking around the evergreen and the party's in full sway. Everyone's welcome, left or right. That's the Planet Normal way.
You may find our hosts to try to tempt you with their food. Liam's mince pies are delightful. Treat yourself to Alison's trifle.
Too true.
Rocking around the evergreen, it's the start of the holiday. So be of good cheer, have a happy new year, and a Merry Christmas Day. Bob, you surpassed yourself. You've got a flotilla of Planet Normal mugs, so you're not getting another one. And this, finally, in our Christmas edition of Planet Normal, is from another poet coming up on the rails. It's Rhyming Simon from Fife. Enjoying coffee from my Planet Normal mug, he says, I felt I had to send another poem whilst I can still afford the coffee and milk.
Just.
Rachel and her abacus, making up the sums. Handouts atop handouts, turning haves into have-nones. Taxing for the fun of it, squeezing till we're dry. It's always someone else's fault. Blame Rachel, she'll just cry. Picking workers' pockets to placate the loony left. Screwing family businesses, at that she's really deft. Forcing farmers off the land who've been there generations. Cranking up the national debt, that's her latest occupation. And right beside his Starmer, Mr. Smarmy, I won't call him sir, the most unpopular PM of all time, with the most unpopular Chancellor. The coincidence is astonishing. 2 bad pennies, just our luck. If this were on a cricket pitch, worse than sticky, they're the Ducks. Time to get them gone in this season of goodwill. Time to send them packing till they can take away their ills, take away their mealy-mouthed, depressing condescension, take away their smugness and other stuff too rude to mention. They can both get stuffed this Christmas, says Rhyming Simon. They can both get in the bin.
Yay.
If they'd been there in Bethlehem, they'd have closed the blooming inn. I tell you, he's giving Bob a run for his money. The shepherds forced off hillsides, their families taxed to death to pay for Labour's promises, and don't say it, our sacred NHS, that have taken Joseph Donkey. It breaks ULEZ regulations, and those wealthy fat cat wise men will have their gifts as reparations. We want a Christmas free of Starmer and a Yuletide free of Reeves. Let's raise a glass to celebrate Planet Normal and all its citizens and toast the star upon our trees. Keep up the good work, Alison and Liam. God bless you and yours. It's Christmas. Rhyming Simon from Fife. Well, you know what, Alison? On that bombshell, that's it from Planet Normal. As we leave our sanctuary of sweet reason, our flying refuge of reasoned views.
And a huge thank you to all of you who've written in, emailed us this year. I know we always say that we love your contributions. We absolutely do. We've got the most intelligent, brilliant, funny, inspired, rhyming listeners. Every week Liam and I say to each other, oh, have you seen this one? And it's everything from Bob and Rhyming Simon to absolutely astonishing revelations about people, farmers and businesses suffering with labour taxes and so on, junior doctors, just a wonderful selection. And thank you so much, because the podcast would not be in any way the same without you.
Absolutely. If you've enjoyed this episode of Planet Normal, and you jolly well should have done, please subscribe, leave us a review and rating wherever you listen. And finally, a big end of year thanks to our producers, Cass Ho, James Hodgson and Louisa Wells. We should say that this is the last Planet Normal. Both Alison and I are going away for a few weeks. The first Planet Normal of 2026 will be on Thursday, the 22nd of January. Between now and then, after this Christmas Day offering, there will be 3 Planet Normal specials where we get together some of our best interviews from 2025. I'll be introducing them and you can listen to them again. So Alison and I will say, stay safe and in touch with us and with each other. Happy Christmas and a happy new year to you and yours, dear citizens of Planet Normal. It's goodbye from me.
Happy Christmas. It's goodbye from him.